Welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Join us every Wednesday to learn about the latest cutting-edge developments in the real-time communications industry. ClueCon Weekly is brought to you by FreeSWITCH Solutions. Get support and professional services directly from the creators of the FreeSWITCH Open Source Project, solving your issues in the most efficient, stable, and scalable way possible. Get the FreeSWITCH advantage. Visit freeswitch.com. Also brought to you by ClueCon, the premier technology conference for developers by developers. Join us every summer in Chicago. ClueCon kicks off on Monday with our annual hackathon, The Coder Games, followed by 3 days of technology-rich presentations discussing telecom, WebRTC, and IoT from developers around the world. To learn more, visit ClueCon.com or call 877-74-CLUE.
And welcome to ClueCon Weekly. Today is the 10th of April, 2019. This week, we're going to be joined by Anthony Minessale, Mike Jerris, and Brian West. You guys know them as the FreeSWITCH core team. They'll be coming up talking about some new stuff coming up with FreeSWITCH, what they're doing over at SignalWire, and all kinds of other fun stuff. Before we get to that, let's go see Miss Abby and Madison for the news. Hey, ladies, how y'all doing?
Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining us today on
ClueCon Weekly.
So I'm going to keep the announcements kind of short today because we have a big day. We are interviewing Anthony, Brian, and Mike, the founders of the FreeSWITCH Open Source Project. And then after we're done chatting with them, we're going to open up the call to have a big group discussion. So first order of business is that we are celebrating ClueCon's 15th anniversary this year. Woo woo! And that means we have specialty 15th anniversary pricing. So we are having our lowest registration prices in over a decade at $7.99. So hop on over to ClueCon.com and register as soon as you can so that you can take advantage of that awesome pricing, especially if you know for sure that you want to go to ClueCon. Now is the time to register.
And even if you don't know for sure, or if you have any questions or just kind of on the fence and need some more information, you can always hop into our ClueCon Slack channel and ask questions there. We're there pretty much 24/7 to help you out and to answer any questions you might have.
Yes, don't hesitate to do that. All right, so the guys are going to be talking a little bit about SignalWire as well as FreeSWITCH. So when you hear all about that, if you're interested in trying it out, you can use the code CCWeekly19. That's all caps, CCWeekly19 when you register at signalwire.com. So if you're interested in playing around with that, don't forget to use the code so that you can play around with your $50 of free credit. All right, so for ClueCon, the call for speakers is open for only 5 more days. So if you've been meaning to submit a speaking proposal, now is the time to do it. Not to mention, what are some perks of being a speaker at ClueCon?
Yes, if you are chosen for a speaking slot at ClueCon, your entire ClueCon admission is free. So you don't have to worry about buying a ticket or paying for registration. All you have to worry about is your nightly accommodations and travel. Yeah.
And everyone is going to think you are so cool. So definitely don't forget to submit your speaking proposals. And our last announcement is just that if you have any questions for the guys, do not hesitate to ask us in any of the Slack channels or the YouTube comments, and we will ask them. We will pass the questions on so that they can ask them live. And if you want to ask your question in person, stick around till the end of the call, and we'll all be there to chat if you're interested in chatting with the guys as well. All right, so now that we've taken care of business, we can talk about the blog spot. So this week, we decided to dedicate our blog spot to April Fool's Day because it wasn't that long ago. And I always laugh at all the pranks that all the corporate, like the companies pull, especially the tech companies. So we're going to review just a couple of the best pranks that we saw this year. If you're interested in seeing some more pranks that we dug up, then check out the FreeSWITCH blog. But without any further ado, one of my favorite tech company pranks this year was Stack Overflow because what's the opposite of revamped?
Unvamped.
They unvamped their entire website as a throwback to Y2K, and I love a good throwback. So they were using their old logo. The entire website was in Comic Sans.
Comic Sans.
Which is the best font you could ever use. Everybody knows always
agree.
use Comic Sans.
Always.
So that was hilarious in its own right. And then to top it off in true early 2000s fashion, when you move the cursor, glitter exploded from the cursor. And I thought that was hilarious because who doesn't love a good throwback?
Exactly.
All right. What's our next tech company prank?
Our next tech company prank is Duolingo sending real-life push notifications in the form of a giant owl mascot named Duo. So as we know, Duolingo is a app that is dedicated to helping you learn new languages. So like I said, this giant owl will show up whenever, wherever, to remind you that you should practice a new language, and they won't stop reminding you to practice a new language until you do it.
I don't know what I would personally do if like a giant owl like actually like just showed up outside of my window, and it's like giant green owl.
Yeah. The video is great. You should check out the video.
So if you want to see the video and a couple other funny videos, hop on over to FreeSWITCH.com and you can see the video. It's really funny. All right, and then our last funny tech prank. I'm not biased at all, and I think the funniest one was SignalWire. Anybody can make a gag product, right? But SignalWire made a real product that actually works. And if you guys aren't familiar, FreeSWITCH and SignalWire is actually, this is kind of a tradition. So every year we put out kind of a prank that actually works. So maybe we can ask the guys that a little bit later during this call, because there's kind of a fun tradition there. So this year, you can, you can do it right now. You can write a LAML or a relay application that speaks using Morse code. In case you've ever dreamed of being a ship captain, this will help you out. This will change lives, okay? It will. So we're just going to demonstrate it. Why don't we demonstrate it? So we are going to call 83866 Morse. Okay, let's see what happens.
Here we go. Ooh. Okay, it's calling.
Okay, it's calling.
Here, I'll hold it up so you guys can hear it.
In this day and age, some people forget where they came from, but not us here at SignalWire. To celebrate our heritage, let's keep this party old school style for a few minutes with some mother Morse code. Tell me, what's your name?
Abby.
So, Abby, here is me saying your badass name in Morse code. Speak whatever you want, and I'll say it in Morse code.
FreeSWITCH rocks.
That would be. I've waited years for this moment, Abby. Let's keep it going. Although I also love a good text.
Okay, we don't need to keep it going. But if you guys want to try that out, check out, if you either want to just call the number or you want to build your own application, you can go to the SignalWire.com blog and you can learn all about it there. And if you're interested in hearing about any more pranks that tech companies pulled this year, then you can check out our blog at FreeSWITCH.com. So that is all we have today. We can just get right into it. Back to you, Ken.
All right. Thank you very much, ladies. We're going to jump over now. Let's see here. We've got Mike, Brian, Tony, and they're going to be talking about FreeSWITCH. So I think they're going to be talking to Abby about that. So let's just jump into those guys. And how's everybody doing today?
Doing great. Hey.
Hey. So, I talked a little bit about, this is a surprise question, but I did talk a little bit about FreeSWITCH pranks. Do you guys have any fun stories from like past April Fools from FreeSWITCH pranks that we've pulled in the past?
Oh God, past April Fools. We
remember?
I mean, I think was ClueCon the first April Fools that we did.
I think it was.
Yeah, so that was a funny one. More
Base
recently,
64 codec. The Base 64 codec was one. It was real.
what else? Oh, Mod Basic.
Mod Basic is the next one I remember.
Good ones over the years. We always kind of made a point that no April Fool's joke was worth it if it wasn't worth actually implementing the idea. So it's been kind of our thing over the years.
Yeah. So we'll have something more to look forward to next year. I just thought that was a fun little thing people would like to hear about. Yeah. But now that we're done with the pranks, we can go into talking more about FreeSWITCH. So as most of you probably know, or if you're kind of new to the community, FreeSWITCH has been around for almost 15 years now. And of course, in that amount of time, things are bound to change. So how would you say the FreeSWITCH Open Source Project has changed over its last 15 years? What evolutions have you seen?
I remember 2 points. One of them, when we first started out, we had a very large blind following. We had blind users that would use FreeSWITCH for audio conferencing and phone calls, and our structured XML config helped with their screen readers so they could configure it. The next thing we had was when we released WebRTC, our community, the type of community member changed drastically, pretty much overnight. And then the second point I can remember is when we released a full video feature set. At that point, we were having companies building products and services that allowed blind people to talk to deaf people. So not only did FreeSWITCH as a project, we lowered the barrier of entry for those types of technologies so people can communicate at a lower cost. Previously, it was very expensive proprietary products and services that people had to pay for. And now they could implement it on FreeSWITCH with little to no effort. So we kind of made that easy.
Yeah. Do any of you, the rest of you, have any different perspective on that? Like, what have you liked to see change? Or like how maybe like personally has your involvement changed over the last 15 years? Yeah.
Oh God. I mean, I think the
Community
thing that Brian said, but the more interesting is the stuff that's happened over the last few years where we've really kind of formalized our support process. And the huge change for us is it used to be, the 3 of us on the phone 12, 18 hours a day. Now we have this huge team. So the kind of service that we're able to provide is just at such a higher level because it's not 3 guys being completely overextended. It's now a whole team and infrastructure, a support team, an engineering team. We have all of these resources to bring to play, and we really can deliver a better product for people, both on the open source side and as far as services and support. So that's a huge difference, and that's changed all of our roles, and I think provides a better result for everyone as well.
Yeah, that really makes a lot of sense. So we talked about how things have already changed, but where do you guys think the project is going to change in the future? What's next for FreeSWITCH in terms of project? Where you see the open source project going? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, we've gone through cycles. This is 15 years we're doing this for. Well, the project's been out for 14 years, but there's a whole pre-planning year. So technically we've been at it for 15 years now. And we go through cycles where we add some disruptive, brand new, amazing features, and then it takes a long time to harden. We're kind of on one of those hardening cycles right now because we put through a bunch of major changes to our media engine to keep up with Chrome browser and WebRTC and all that kind of fancy stuff. And since we do that, we have kind of it's more like spring cleaning, only a little slower. Like we have a lot of older code that we don't use anymore. We're trying to figure that out. We also have I think we're up to 3 million lines of code now that we generated ourselves between, there's a lot more dependencies and stuff in our code base, but the code we've written has gotten pretty big. So we spend a lot of time trying to make sure it works. We started working on a unit testing framework so that we can make sure we don't accidentally break stuff, which is a lot easier to do when you have 3 million lines of code. And so basically kind of just looking for things that maybe we started out with a handful of modules, and now we have many folders full of all different types, and some of them are kind of obsolete, and we move them over to kind of a contributed third-party area rather than building them into the main release. And deciding if everyone still likes them. And there's a lot of that kind of stuff going on right now. So it's really kind of about getting ready for what the next big thing will be that will have to break everything again. So, like, I'm assuming that there's going to be a second generation of WebRTC coming. That's going to probably be something we'll focus on. As it matures, it starts to overtake all the other protocols. There's a lot of use cases for kind of both at once, and we have to deal with that. Multi-stream type of environment is coming with browsers, and they're kind of rearranging WebRTC to take the place of basically SIP and everything else. So for all we know, we'll have phones. Every phone will use WebRTC, and SIP will be dead, but who knows? And it's kind of like faxing. I'm sure it won't go away completely, but it takes a lot of work to get it all kind of keep up with all the changes, because you got this phenomenon where there's people that write specs and then there's people that implement them and they don't know each other. It tends to be complete opposite or whatever it says in the directions. So just try and find a happy medium between that and make things that work for people that without having the burden of trying to figure out the details.
Right. So you kind of talked about how right now you guys are in a phase of getting ready for the next big thing and making sure everything is tight and working. But in like your wildest dreams, like what are some new features that could possibly be coming whenever that you guys like would be really, really excited about, like specific features?
I think that the one I'm most excited about, and this is echoing Tony to some extent, is all the new work we've been doing on WebRTC. There's some really exciting stuff. One of the things is part of growing is we now have resources. We are working on a WebRTC SDK for SignalWire. So that's a completely revamped JS side and a bunch of stuff on the server side to go with it. Lots of exciting opportunities as far as the ways to use WebRTC are going to be coming on the SignalWire side, but also will affect the FreeSWITCH side as well. So that's probably the most exciting piece, is that stuff really kind of maturing and gathering a bunch of new features along the way. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, well, you just mentioned SignalWire just now, and I'm sure a lot of people who have been following us are familiar with SignalWire, but for some of the new people to the community, would you guys be willing to take a second to kind of explain what SignalWire is? Because it is still pretty new.
Yeah, sure. So, like I said, 15 years of FreeSWITCH. Over the years, we've been working really hard on making basically anything possible that nearly anyone has asked us for. That kind of results in complexity increase. We have basically an endless amount of different things that you can do. And it's very kind of dream come true for a developer wanting to just build something, with different pieces and whatnot. But there's also the downside to it is the learning curve keeps getting harder the more we do things. And there's a larger group of people that really want to benefit from all the functionality, but don't have the time to invest in like learning how to do all the deep code. Even if you're using the software without modifying it at all, like the stuff you have to connect it to takes a lot of work, and there's a backend and a bunch of other logic. We noticed that, and we decided that with the technology stack that we developed over the years, that we could probably take it to the next level by building a service around it to tackle some of the harder problems that you really can't just do a how-to and explain to people to build it themselves. It's like a scalable infrastructure to be able to kind of just to have as much FreeSWITCH resources as you need, and also to kind of dumb down all the complexity that we've amassed with all the different options and stuff, and make some basic, obvious kind of use case scenarios that people can run, from a simple environment like their favorite Node.js type programming environment, or like the browser, and places where there's really someone who's for commercial use, they want to be able to have a dependable service that they're selling to someone else, and we wanted to help provide that. So it's kind of gives us a really good way to give us an environment for that. Also, because over the years we've been, we've had one sponsor or the other for the project, and we decided that, maybe we should be our own sponsor. So it's kind of also us we have a really big community full of people that all wanted to work together, and they can't all volunteer because they all have families and stuff. So we figure with the commercial effort, it'll just take things to the next level. There's another large audience out there in the world that kind of needs these products and services. So that's kind of how we keep ourselves together and take all the great people that we've met over the years and keep them in part of the community, because there's got to always be a way to fund things too.
Right. And you kind of mentioned the SignalWire team. So that team you're saying is still made up of people like from the FreeSWITCH community, and you guys make up the team? Like it's still your project, right?
Right. We have the FreeSWITCH community is worldwide, spanning with all the volunteers, and there's a lot more closer knit people that have been around over the years that we've sort of brought together to be able to work on just kind of crazy new ideas that you can't just experiment with in open source, because it takes way too much effort. Like, you can't just, open source is a really amazing way to work in the open and share how you're doing stuff, but it really takes kind of another level of attention to be able to focus something into a product. And that's kind of where having those people that have experience in that before. A lot of the people that work for us have had multiple exits as successful entrepreneurs, leveraging FreeSWITCH in other ways, or they've been somehow working in multiple different jobs to build things out of it. So it's really kind of what the difference is. Like, when you have the open source project that gives you anything you want, here's the code, you can change it and do whatever you want with it, versus like a polished product, which is really designed for someone that is just more of a consumer. That's why iPhone is really easy to work and they don't have a prompt on it.
Cool. So you definitely touched on my next question, talking about how SignalWire is now sponsoring FreeSWITCH in terms of the open source project, but we all know open source is free, so it can be kind of hard to sustain that project financially. What other ways are you guys supporting the open source project financially, in addition to the SignalWire sponsorship that you just talked about?
Well, we have professional services that's designed for companies that have the need for telecommunications, video, voice, WebRTC, but don't necessarily have full FreeSWITCH resources in-house. They have DevOps resources that can work on Linux systems and do those things, but they don't necessarily have the domain knowledge to build and implement a FreeSWITCH system. Our professional services via the SignalWire stack allows companies to take their current resources, plug them into our resources, and we elevate them to be FreeSWITCH knowledgeable. It helps us help them a lot quicker. Somebody coming to the open source could spend all day trying to figure out one thing by reading the code or the documentation, or they could have our professional services and we can answer them in 30 seconds what to look for and what to do or how to do it, saving them time and money. This also helps companies start off using FreeSWITCH the right way, where it scales, it works. I've seen, companies build products and services in a vacuum for 9 months to a year, and then show up asking for professional services, and we're there to help them. But when we do an analysis, had they come to us 9 months earlier when they first started, we could have saved them a lot of time and effort and implemented everything that they've spent a year on almost the right way the first time. So we've seen it more than a handful of times where this has happened. And I would like to make sure that companies that are seeking out to build products and services on FreeSWITCH to meet a need that they have, contact us. We can help you.
Yeah, so of course we have our FreeSWITCH professional services. Are there any other resources out there for people who maybe need a little bit of help, or just what other resources are there for people who are involved in
We do have our SignalWire community Slack. If you go to signalwire.community, there's a FreeSWITCH and a FreeSWITCH dev channel on there as well. That way you can interface with like-minded individuals in the open source community to get help and bounce ideas. We're also in those channels answering questions for people, so we can help guide those individuals in the right direction.
Yeah, that's definitely nice. I know sometimes it's hard when you're talking to a robot. So yeah, the Slack channels are definitely great.
And what's nice about the Slack channels, we could actually graduate if say somebody does come in and they have a complex problem, and sometimes doing that over a chat is not optimal. Let's just hop on a call. So I'll just have them hop on a video call, and we'll just hash through it in 10 minutes, and I'll understand what they're trying to ask a lot quicker than trying to back and forth in chat. So we've got both of those elements that I've used. I've even had open source users file Jerris, and I'll reach out to them, and I need to better understand what their needs are. And so I do reach out to people that aren't, SignalWire Stack customers or even commercial professional services customers, and seek those people out and try to get an understanding of what they're trying to do, because there could be something that we could do to assist them and make their life a little easier. We do have a lot of people coming into the community that are small mom and pop shops that just don't have the resources to dive into SignalWire Stack or engage in professional services. So we do our best to help those users in need.
Yeah, so you kind of just were touching on my next question, actually. A lot of things are changing and a lot of things are staying the same. So for some people out there who are maybe new or have been here for a while, what is the difference between FreeSWITCH Advantage and SignalWire Stack?
That's a good one. We rebranded FreeSWITCH Advantage to SignalWire Stack just to kind of have some clear branding around the SignalWire name. SignalWire Stack is what we used to call FreeSWITCH Advantage, and it's our supported, fully supported commercial offering based on FreeSWITCH.
So for people who maybe already were FreeSWITCH Advantage customers, has the product changed at all? Have the services changed at all with the rebranding, or is it just the name?
Not specific with the rebranding. We did change the versioning scheme on the SignalWire Stack packages just to differentiate, so you're clear that it is different, but not related to the branding. We have brought on more people and things like that, so our levels of service have improved over time, but nothing else. It's just the same product with a different name for a clear branding that it's our core engine. We also do use that, essentially for the SignalWire cloud. So we're using the same stuff that our customers are using out there, plus everything else we've written to make SignalWire cloud possible. But we're on the same stuff that the customers get for running our own things as well. It's kind of a level playing.
Yeah, and then we talked a little bit also, there's so much going on. We also talked about how the Slack channels and our support is very geared towards developers. You guys know what developers need help with, and as developers yourself, you're able to help out with that in a way that's productive. So who specifically is the FreeSWITCH Professional Services, the SignalWire Stack, aimed towards, would you say?
Well, I kind of touched on that, but enterprises that want to implement telecommunications, voice or video, that don't necessarily have the time to invest in learning FreeSWITCH top to bottom, because it is, I've always called FreeSWITCH a Lego set, but it doesn't come with the nice little instructions like Lego sets come with to help you build a product or service out of the box with the bricks that we provide. So we help you take those bricks and build them, things out of it that are meaningful.
Great. So that's awesome. What inspired you guys to start the FreeSWITCH Professional Services, the SignalWire Stack, in the first place? What made you guys decide to step up from just the open source project to having this support these professional services?
Kind of started when we had basically the kinds of questions that people are asking were going well outside the scope of just FreeSWITCH itself, because we have a lot of domain experience. We've built multiple products at different companies in the past, and those skills are kind of spilled into everything we do. We design the software in the first place to be able to make products. That's really kind of what we want people to do with it. But sometimes, we've noticed an overwhelming number of people that are really just, they didn't only need to know how to configure FreeSWITCH or whatever, but how to deploy it properly, how to interface it to, they're doing like their own programming and they wanted to know how to write a module or how to do some of these more complex things that, we thought what could be helpful with. So we decided that way that, for one thing, it helps drive the development towards something that people really want. You have to kind of decide what to do when you have 1 million different users asking for things. Maybe one person wants something and 1,000 people want something else, and the more people you can satisfy with the changes you make, it gives you sort of a discipline. A lot of open source projects are driven by some kind of like commercial use cases. Like when we built products out of FreeSWITCH before, they were commercial products, and it helped harden and make the open source better. So like those, the contributions created by someone that really has a targeted use case for the software helps decide the right places to focus on. Because like we talked about with 3 million lines of code and hundreds of modules, some of them might fall into disuse, some of them need even more functionality, and it's really kind of the best way to sort the problem. It would be completely overwhelming to just kind of not be able to tell the difference between what one person just thought would be a good idea and something that's really kind of satisfying a large group.
Cool. And I think our biggest question that I have next is something that I think a lot of people who maybe aren't as involved in the community are wondering. So since the launch of SignalWire, which we talked about, has that changed the FreeSWITCH open source project at all?
The biggest change that's probably made to the open source project is that I now pay some people who used to do stuff for free for me. We had a lot of, like I said, a lot of our community members became our employees, which is kind of a great way to keep them around. And they put a lot of work in the past. So, as far as how we run things, we haven't changed anything. It's basically same everything. We change our website around once in a while, but we've had the same, I think we crossed 12,000 bugs yet in Jira. I mean, we've been going forever. We just hit the 10,000 mark last year, and we were celebrating that milestone. So we had that thing for so long, I'm surprised it even works anymore. We put so many, our database is probably overflowing. We have tens of thousands of users in there. We pretty much don't know any other way to do software development. We started this back in 2005. There was hardly any of the cool stuff there is now for software development, but we still use our older ways, very old school, do all our coding from a Unix prompt, using Emacs and SSH, and don't really use any IDEs or anything like that. So, and we do our release cycle on a similar basis. So really, there's no big difference other than maybe now we've got our SignalWire entity who is also dependent on FreeSWITCH. And hopefully we figure that as we drive our way through building those products, the same great effects will happen as, early in the project's life, we did the Barracuda phone system. And it ended up dumping most PBX functionality into FreeSWITCH that anyone would ever want. So that's really kind of a great way to find direction. Just kind of echoing the same thing I answered the other question.
Yeah, I'll echo Tony with the biggest change has been far more resources, and the extra resources have freed up all of us to focus on some more important things, but have also opened up resources for things like unit testing, which has always been kind of the bane of our existence. We've always needed it and never really had the time or energy to do that. Like doing better continuous integration testing. These are things that we've actually started to implement and have people who are focusing on now as dedicated resources and actively working on things. We're doing far better static code analysis testing and actually fixing those issues. These are kind of all the things that always got left on. Oh yeah, we should really do that, but we don't have the time. So all of these things have started to happen. We have a real unit test framework in FreeSWITCH, which we had said for years, yeah, we should really do that, and it just never happened because there was never enough.
In fact, we've never had more than 5 people paying full-time attention to the code.
Yeah. It makes a huge difference to have a whole set of resources where, some trivial issue doesn't have to distract Tony. He can keep working on something. And we have a team of people who can look at things and code review and all of that underneath. So I don't think Tony's looked at the unit test framework, once probably, but we've had probably 4 or 5 other people who have worked on it. And new things as new features are added, those tests go in now. It's just a start, but it's heading in the right direction.
Yeah, people are much more willing to do work when you give them money for it.
Isn't that funny?
Crazy.
That is true.
All right, so I'm about to bring up ClueCon, but before we do that, do we have any final thoughts on what we want people to know about what's coming up in FreeSWITCH, the new opportunities that are open to them because of some of these changes? Any final thoughts?
One of our favorite kind of analogies with this is that, if you know exactly what you're doing, here you go. Like, here's all the code. We're happy to help you even ask a question in our Slack channel. If you feel you need help and you actually need to hire many people to work on it, you can let one of those people be us. For basically the price of a part-time engineer, you can have us, help you as you need. It complements engineering resources pretty well. I mean, most of our customers, they have their own people, and then they interact with us on a daily basis. So we kind of it's like having that cheat codes for Nintendo.
Yep.
You can call up and figure out how to get through something faster.
All right. Awesome. So in a little bit after we talk about ClueCon, we were going to let people join the call and have a little bit of a bigger discussion if people are interested in that. But first, this is ClueCon's 15th anniversary this year. So what do you guys think makes ClueCon different, and what are you guys trying to accomplish this year? Why do we put on this conference every year?
What really makes ClueCon different is that we have no idea what we're doing when we started the conference. We just thought it would be cool to have a conference, and we're like, oh, everyone else has conferences for various other things. Let's have one for telephony. And so we just tried having a conference, and our ineptitude kind of paid off because we had some new ideas that we just figured were normal, but they're kind of against the grain of how a normal conference works, and it kind of took off from there. It's hard to count that many years. Seems like less than that, but all kinds of blurs together eventually.
Yeah. Well, FreeSWITCH didn't exist. ClueCon existed prior to FreeSWITCH. We kind of had rumblings and discussions about possibly going a different direction and coming up with something new. That was solidified. It was the right decision. We came to that at the very first ClueCon when we interacted with everybody else from every other project, pulled everybody together. We didn't have the conference invited every open source project that's involved with telephony, and that was a really good eye opener, I think, for us as well as them. We still interact with a lot of those projects today.
Yeah, I think there might have been a proof of concept baby version of FreeSWITCH that had maybe 3 files in it in one module that if you tell that to a port, it would echo back everything you typed. That was basically the state of affairs. And we did a lot of talking then. A lot of developers kind of sharing ideas and stuff, and it really kind of gave us the direction to get it going the rest of the way. I think by the time there was no FreeSWITCH at the first ClueCon, but by the time that same year was over, we already had a cross-platform version running on Windows and on Linux at the same time.
Yeah, so we kind of have a little bit of an informal theme going on with ClueCon of then and now, since it's kind of a big anniversary. So you talked about how all these projects came together to just share ideas then. How do you think ClueCon has changed now? Because all of that still goes on, sharing ideas and supporting the FreeSWITCH Open Source Project as well as other projects. But what more do you think that we add to now that it's been 15 years and we've kind of figured out what we're doing finally?
I don't know. I'd say one thing is we've come sort of full circle with the relationship with Asterisk. We all used to be Asterisk developers a really long time ago. We helped make some of it, and we got super inspired to do something so different that it was really hard to try and modify Asterisk any further. So we just went off and built our own stuff. And then, the leadership changed in Asterisk a few times over those years, but, we started having kind of complementary services to each other. And, there's a myth that we have some kind of evil feud with them or something, but we don't. They actually come to ClueCon also. We go to AstroCon. So that's kind of cool that came full circle. I think that's one of the best parts about now. I think at the first one, we kind of had a few people there because there was no FreeSWITCH yet. And it's never really been the Hatfield and McCoys like everyone thinks.
You guys see any? What is your favorite part of fun now? Now that it's not more formal. I wouldn't say that because I definitely think we still do it for developers. Like you guys created this conference.
Definitely more organized because we try and do it ourselves. And now we have you and Sharon and Jill and everybody else who actually makes it a great conference. So before, when we first started, we'd have cardboard boxes sitting out on stage. Engineers can't do everything right.
Maybe this year as a throwback, as decoration, we can leave some cardboard boxes out. And I think you guys told me once that the first ClueCon had a keg. Maybe we'll get a keg.
Mark Spencer himself bought us a keg of beer, and then we didn't finish it all, so we put it in the middle of the room where the presentations were, and people filling up their cup while someone else is talking.
Well, that definitely makes it
fun memories.
Going back to not knowing what we're doing. That's one good rule if you're going to start a conference. Don't put a keg in the middle of the conference. You have to learn some things the hard way.
Yeah, I was going to bring up that we should go back to that.
Again, our theme of then and now.
I did go back to it about 3-4 years in, and it ended up in someone's room. It was even worse. There was a keg in a little tiny hotel room with 30 people.
I vaguely recall that night.
Yep.
All right. Well, again, if you guys are planning on attending ClueCon, maybe think about bringing us a keg. No, don't.
No, we're a little more discreet about it now, though. But if you do come to ClueCon and you ask the right person, you'll probably find something good.
Yeah, so ClueCon's a fun time. I like that. I wasn't obviously at the first ClueCon, but I feel like I can imagine what it was like. Just that air of sharing ideas, and it's kind of like a relaxed environment. It's not so. It's like a place to just share your ideas, kind of like a college course in 1 week. I think.
Yeah, crazy engineering type people like to let their minds wander, and that's kind of what ClueCon's about. A lot of times people make stuff just while they're there. They just get super inspired, and by the time the thing's over, a lot of them write their talk 5 minutes before they give it because it's inspired by something they saw the day before, and they change their mind about what they're talking about. And all kinds of really rapid development takes place because of all of the kind of inspiration from talking to. You have someone from every little piece of what you need to build kind of any kind of VoIP service. So you've got phone vendors and programmers and biz dev guys, and you all just start having a beer or two, and you end up, hey, I have a really good idea, and the next thing you know, they already made it and they're showing it to you. So cool.
And I'd also like to point out that bring the family. It's a good place to bring your family. The wife and the kids, they can go out during the day and see the city. There's a lot of stuff to do in Chicago. So that seems to be one area that gets asked a lot.
Yeah, I've only had one tornado.
Yeah, I've only had one tornado.
Most of the time, it's really nice during that time of year.
Yeah, it is really nice. And we have this year, actually, since you brought it up, we have a special family ticket this year. So if your family happens to want to watch some of the talk, lunch with you at the hotel, they're available to do that. They can also come to all of the networking events that we throw. So they're mostly family friendly. Just don't come to our secret keg party, and it's all good.
I don't think we've sent anyone to the hospital in years.
Oh Lord, that's only happened once. It wasn't our fault.
Somebody in the audience, I won't tell you who, they want me to ask you about a police raid. So we have a comment from the audience. They want you to tell that story.
I will say emphatically that the police raid was totally incidental to our presence and we had nothing to do with it. I was, however, detained in a parking lot by a bunch of guys with guns.
And we did, I believe, fix their Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we were in the process of fixing said Wi-Fi, and I was crawling
We
across
reached into the ceiling and found the wires and put our own access points up because their Wi-Fi was down.
Yeah.
I think at the second ClueCon, the router died because of a lightning strike, and then we had to ClueCon is the only place where you can say something like, "Does anyone have a router?" And like some 2-3 people will pull one out of a bag and offer it to you.
See, this is a good example. 15 years.
To the bowels of the hotel and down in their network and like put a temporary router in because their entire hotel was dead.
Yeah.
15 years later, no police raids, very nice place in Chicago. The internet is great.
Yeah, we've actually got the habit of bringing our own internet in and not relying on the hotel because we've had issues in the past, and making sure that our Wi-Fi worked was critical to the success of the conference. So we put a lot of effort into that. And that, that is something that people can sponsor as well. If you're a company and you want to sponsor, by all means, email marketing@cluecon.com. Those are the types of things you can put your company name on, like sponsored the Wi-Fi.
Yeah, you couldn't even do it when we first started. Like you couldn't give Wi-Fi to hundreds of people.
No.
And then it evolved from being impossible to only possible with some expensive company that like would come in and provide it. And it's almost to the point that anyone can do it now. So like the technology is moving pretty well, but it's still it's pretty challenging when you have 300 people and every one of them has at least 5 devices that join Wi-Fi. They have like 2 phones in their pocket, their laptops, and like their watch. Like it's a good test bed for making sure you know how to implement Wi-Fi signaling properly.
Yeah. And if you sponsor the Wi-Fi, people will be very impressed because we all know how notorious conference Wi-Fi is.
Yeah, which also makes people reluctant to do it, but I say take the risk. When it pays off,
Last year, it definitely paid off.
Crowd cheering one year for the Wi-Fi sponsor. The entire place was up, just like ecstatic about it.
Oh my gosh. Well, I could talk about ClueCon for hours, but I think the next part of the plan is to open up the call to like Jersey Mike and Ken and anybody else in this call who would like to ask you guys any questions and kind of open up the discussion to be a little bit more informal.
Yeah. That was great to have Ken around. He's basically our first user ever. Like,
yeah.
Part of the community and our team for the day we launched, like even back in Asterisk days.
Yeah, pretty much. I remember when we first started actually doing a call like this back early on, Brian had a little crappy server in a closet running a bridge software. We would just all dial in over SIP. No video, no text, just call in, and you never know what was going to be discussed. And I know I wouldn't be using FreeSWITCH today to the level that I am without guys like Brian and Tony helping me back before FreeSWITCH even existed. And then once Tony released FreeSWITCH, I'm sure he cussed me quite a few times with me breaking it.
Those people, I don't usually cuss them too much. I have much more hatred for the people that write the specs because they don't actually try any of it. They just write it down on paper and then make me try and invent it. And then it never matches real life. That's why we're going to have a roundtable about that at ClueCon probably. Like, how is WebRTC still just as bad with specs as the rest of the internet?
Worse.
Yeah, and I think we want to kind of do something like that again, Ken, where we engage the community more at that level.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it would be really cool if I'm looking at the list of people that are called into the conference right now. And if you guys have something to ask away. We've got Mike, Brian, and Tony here right now. I'm watching the chat. I'm watching the YouTube comments. James Bodie, by the way, is watching YouTube and says hi to everybody.
Hi.
And he really liked the cardboard boxes. And so maybe we should have those for him again this year.
Oh, and sign up for dangerous demos at ClueCon. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but we're also watching the Slack channel. We're watching IRC. We're watching the YouTube chat. So if you guys have any questions, pop in here now and go ahead and get them. And if you're watching on YouTube, and in the future you want to get in here and you want to talk to the presenter, you can call in. You can ask ask questions. We're going to proxy them in for you, so you can get your questions answered. I guess I'm going to ask a question real quick. So I know Tony, Mike, Brian, you guys have been, you're working on the 1.8 release line right now. When's the next big release going to be coming after that? Are we looking at that later this year, or are you gonna do 1.10? Or are we gonna call it something else?
We're still trying to decide that. Basically, our cycle usually goes every 2 years for major versions, so we're kind of like running out of space. Like, is it like a clock? Does it hit 12 and then go to 1, or does it do we go to 2.0 ever? Like, does it even matter? Linux decided to start going crazy with that, and they're on 4 now or something. They're on 0 point something for the first 20 years. It's pretty arbitrary, but something we probably should figure out pretty soon. We're running out of time on it. Usually what we try and do is, like I was saying, we have this kind of hardening period. So usually when we released 1.6, it just kept changing over a 2-year window as the stuff still merged in. Usually the 0 point release is the worst one because we're just going for broke and sticking a whole bunch of crazy new stuff in there, and then as it kind of matures over time, it kind of hardens, and 1.6 is pretty stable after many years. So we probably have another good year of just. I think we're only on low digits on 1.8, right? I mean, 5.
Yeah, we're on 1.85 right now.
So we'll probably try and get to a 10 or 15, and then we'll have to decide.
Cool. I guess. Anybody else have any questions for Mike, Brian, and Tony, or even Abby?
Oh, I don't know. Let's think. Okay, if you had all the infinite free time in the world, and you could build anything with FreeSWITCH, as a joke, or that's not really that useful, or something that would be super useful, but you just don't have time, what would you build? Infinite resources and free time.
I would build something that integrates with the SignalWire to do we have today we have a group that's doing a call group for healthcare, and so they don't have the tools and utilities to simplify that, and they're going to be using apps from the App Store that's going to complicate it, and they're going to manually type these messages in their phones to send to everybody they're trying to interact with. I could build something to do that with SignalWire, and they could automate it and make their campaign to do those events a lot more effective.
What you describe is exactly how our chroma key function happened, and why the wall behind Brian is green. That was one of those I wonder if we can kind of things that just kind of ran with it, and Brian's reporting from the White House. So.
Oh no.
So those come up every once in a while where we're just, sitting on a video conference, talking stuff through. And it's I wonder if, and
yeah, but then we take it to stupid extremes. Most people are oh, let me get a green screen backdrop, which I did. Didn't work as good. So I'm I'm painting the wall. And then, the lighting's not right. So now I have light boxes that keep the front light and everything. So, when you're on video all day like I am, it matters.
And then the next thing you know, Brian's riding a roller coaster on his chroma key.
I actually have my treadmill desk. I'm actually standing on my treadmill. It's not running, but Tony has one. If I'm walking on the treadmill, it looks like I'm really walking fast in the video. It's pretty comical.
I like the reverse roller coaster video for that when you're walking.
That's funny.
You're walking down the roller coaster. Let's see.
Well, I'm not seeing a lot of questions come in. You guys have covered a lot of ground today, believe it or not.
We talked about a lot of things. So I guess we can wrap it up here. If any of you guys want to ask any questions not recorded to be put up on YouTube, you could do that when we end ClueCon Weekly officially. But just a reminder that ClueCon, because it's our 15th anniversary, we're having the lowest price we've ever had in like a decade, right? At $7.99. So especially if you want to meet these guys or just meet with other developers and talk about your project and kind of bounce ideas, it's definitely a great place to do that. And lowest price in over a decade, so no downside there.
Yeah, we added a hackathon now in the last couple of years, so that
Oh,
first
yeah.
day one is just making stuff.
Yes, it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of different challenges. There's programming challenges. There's like a challenge that you build things with like popsicle sticks and other kind of household materials. You could build something out of SignalWire to get a really cool prize. And this year, I don't know if you guys know this yet, but this year we're going to have a game show and it's going to be really awesome and fun. So there's going to be a lot of different programming, not programming challenges in there. And we also have our very own card game that we're going to pull out. I think we're going to have an expansion pack to that too. So if you guys are familiar with Cards Against Humanity, we made Cards Against Technology. It's a little more PG-13, so don't worry. But we're also going to make a ClueCon expansion pack. So that'll be a lot of fun. That's a collectible item because we don't know how many prints.
Has anyone played mixed deck Cards Against Humanity and Cards Against
Yeah, it
Technology?
works really well.
Yeah.
Well,
It is.
Now we can throw in the mix as well.
We should definitely play a mixed deck at some point next time we're together. That's awesome.
It's a lot of since we've all been
We
taking
did
turns
that.
around. We did do that at
Con.
yeah.
We did that.
It was a lot of fun. Well, we could talk about that a little bit more later, or just I guess that is all we have for today. So thank you, and you can or not.
All right, guys. Thank you, Abby, Anthony, Brian, and Michael for coming on and talking about everything today. Next week, guys, we're going to have Mr. Duffett from Topic. He's going to be joining us. I'm not sure where he's going to be, but he'll be here the 7th, which is next Wednesday. That's noon Central Time. So you guys get in and join. Don't forget, have guests that you'd like to know about that. Also, if you want to sponsor ClueCon, email marketing@cluecon.com. You'll get more information on that. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
You've been watching ClueCon Weekly. Tune in every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Central. Keep up with the latest happenings by subscribing to our YouTube channel, follow us on Facebook and Twitter, or visit us at FreeSWITCH.com.